welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. I grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. This week we'll be going over many different aspects of World of Warcraft, people just starting playing, the controversial GTKPs, fixing PvP, many different things essentially, and going to be giving my takes on them. And yeah, would love to hear yours as well. But we obviously have the weekly news as always. We have the 3 world bosses, Basil, Zakali Elders and Aerostar, located in the Azure Span, Sarlacc Caverns and Emerald Dream, respectively. We have Mr. Pandaria Time Walking as the bonus event for the week. This is where you can buy reputation, mounts, anything like that with Time Walking badges from the Mr. Pandaria era. The brawl for this week is Arathi Blizzard. This means that it is Arathi Basin, but the visibility is limited to, I think, about 20 yards, maybe something like that, 15 to 20. It does look like a really cool landscape, and it is actually really enjoyable to play. It really does mix it up a bit. This is also in conjunction with Battleground Blitz. I'm not sure if there is a bug there, but I have 2 Battleground Blitz sign-ups instead of an Arathi Blizzard and a Battleground Blitz. So I'm not sure what's happening there, but hopefully, that gets fixed, or it might just be a Battleground Blitz and they haven't added it on the calendar. I really don't know. It might just be a little bit of a bug there. The mythic affixes for this week are Entangling, Bolstering and Fortified. Entangling, just don't stand still. You'll get rooted and stuff eventually and slow down, so you want to be keeping on the move every now and again. Bolstering, when a mob dies, it will yell out a scream, increasing the damage and health of nearby mobs by a certain percentage. You want to kill everything within the same sort of time period. You want it all very low when you kill the mobs, essentially, to stop this from stacking too high and eventually, becoming a problem. And Fortified, this is the non-boss week. So non-boss enemies have more damage and and more health. So bring a talent build that can accommodate for that. So first thing that I want to be going over is PvP. And this is what I found, what some people think, or this is what someone has thought on how to fix PvP. So let's see it. Nerf Destro Warlock Dimensional Rift. Increased cast time on Fear. Fear has a very decent cast time for what it is, because it can be dispelled, it can be tremored. I think that's very fine, Fear. The Dimensional Rift, it's most of their damage because it's their tier set at the moment. And to be honest, Chaos Spell in the actual meta itself, it's still very powerful, but the thing is you have to hardcast it to get it off, and it's very tough to do, so having these instant casts makes it a lot easier and a decent source of damage output when you can get some CC on the healer and stuff like that. I think Dimensional Rift isn't too bad. I think it's in a good spot. I think it's recharge is a good time, and I think the immolate and how much it refreshes Dimensional Rift is in a very good spot as well. So what Warlocks do is their immolate spell, every tick of damage it does, it has a chance to reset one of the what do you call it, stacks, I guess? No, one of the dimensional rifts, you have 3 charges. That's it, charges, that's the word. It resets one of the charges of dimensional rift potentially for every tick it does. So if you're lucky, in 3 ticks of immolate, you can get 3 dimensional rifts back, but it's a very low proc chance, so you're not seeing this too much, but you do notice it every now and again. To be honest, I don't think Destro locks are a problem. I think they are a problem because what is being paired with it. So what's being paired with it is Demon Hunters and Rogues. Rogues obviously have very good shutdown and CC capabilities that allow the Warlock to get Chaos Bolts off to do a lot more damage. Demon Hunters have a lot more consistent damage And they do have the stuns as well, so therefore they can lock down the target for the Warlock to just pump damage into, and they don't have to worry about trying to set up their own sort of go, essentially, with their mortal coils and stuff like that. The second part to this is nerf DH damage and defensives. Remove Netherwalk and nerf blur. Now, I've spoken about DHs a lot. The problem with DHs is they can do everything at the moment. They do a lot of damage. They have very good defensive utility. They are CC immune. They have very good mobility, if not the best in the game. They just have everything, and there's no real weakness to them at the moment, which isn't great if you're looking at a balanced perspective in the game or on an MMO. So, in my honest opinion, the way that they need to be nerfed is via their CC immunity. I think that making the Vengeful Retreat make it so that you can't be CC immune while you use it, because having a 20-second cooldown that makes you immune to CC is not good for however long you're in the air. I think just simply removing that and you should be a bit better. I personally think that, yeah, by doing that, it's going to be like a lot better just to get rid of that CC immunity, because their damage is very good, but you can obviously CC it, but then they have so many things to get rid of it. So you Shadow Meld one, you kick one, or you kick one, and then you Shadow Meld one, and then you Vengeful Retreat one, and then you kick one again. And, you know, by that time, you may as well not have pressed your CC on them and just, you know, kept trying to do damage yourself. But the thing is, there's a incident that I had where I had a demon hunter training me, and my mage was trying to be in the middle of him and the healer, and the healer was the opposite side of the map. And I dragged the demon hunter so far away that I tried to solo him, but he out-healed my burst damage. A demon hunter, who is not a hybrid class, was out-healing my burst damage as a boomkin. Which shouldn't be a thing, should it? It really shouldn't be a thing. Yeah, that's really not great, to be honest with you. I think the only thing that you do need to look at is the Vengeful Retreat CC immunity. I think that will clear a lot of things up for DH. And I don't think that's a bad thing to trade as well. I think DHs would like to keep everything else, like mobility, damage, etc., etc. Shaman static field totem should be removed from the game, as there is no counterplay to it. There is counterplay. You kill the totem that has like 20k health. That's the counterplay. The counterplay to totem or to shamans in most PvP instances is by killing the totems. That's it. That's all it is. It's crazy that so many people don't do that. I understand that this guy posting this is a warlock. He might be a demo warlock, in which case he needs instant demon bolt procs. But essentially, yes, there is counterplay to it. You just need to be better at switching to the static field totem to kill it. That's it. Druid, increase cast time on Cyclone and its duration. They want to increase Cyclone's duration when they did an entire patch that nerfed CC. Yeah, that makes no sense, because that would mean that everyone cries about Cyclone and it's like, oh my god, it's an 8-second CC. I can't dispel it. We need it to be dispelled. Then that just brings so many more issues. The problem with Druid, again, if you're getting trained by a couple of melee or anything like that, you have to get your precog in order to do this, and then you have to get through a spell reflect, a CC immunity with Vengeful Retreat, and then Shadow Meld, and then Storm Bolt, and then another kick because you don't have precog anymore. Multiple things that can stop you from doing this. And if you're a warlock, you can just port away from the Cyclone. If you can see it coming, you can kick it as well. You can stun it. You can fear it. There's many different counterplays to Cyclone. And yeah, I just don't personally see the problem with Cyclone. I think a lot of people have become a bit more aware of it since all CC got nerfed, and there wasn't many people playing Druid as much. But, you know, it is what it is. Everyone will find something to complain about in an arena. Mage, remove that blink back thingy and decrease duration on alter time. The blink back thingy, the displacement. So essentially, mages can take a talent where if you blink, it will put a little sort of arcane orb where you blinked from. And what you can do is reactivate displacement, and it will TP you back there and heal you for a certain amount. Now, this is very good for mobility. This is very good for kiting. Personally, as a warlock, I don't notice mage blinks. I, as a caster, do not notice mage blinking at all. You can see them when they run, maybe, like very far, but I really don't think that mage blink is a problem at all. Shadow, make Dark Ascension 1.5 minutes and make it slightly stronger. 1 minute void volleys are stupid. I'm not gonna lie, if someone's getting hit by void volleys, then that's kind of on you because they are very easy to dodge. I get if you're stunned and stuff, but it's not that big of a deal. I think you could maybe put DRs on void volleys, like full DR, just they DR themselves, nothing else. But I don't see a problem with this at all. Ret Rally, increase forbearance time. They can just cycle through defensives to no end and also provide allies with them. Broken in the right hands. Remove Blessing as Sacrifice for Rets. Blessing as Sacrifice? That's the defensive one. They mean sank. I don't know if they mean sank or not. I'll go over both of them. Essentially, Rets have a couple defensives. They have a 30% wall on a 1 minute cooldown. They have Shield of Vengeance on a 1.3 minute cooldown, essentially a 1 minute cooldown. They have Bop/Spell Bop, which is a shield that makes you immune to physical or magical damage, depending on which one you pick. And you have your Divine Shield, which gives you complete immunity. Oh, plus Lay on Hands. These are big cooldowns. 7 minutes for Lay on Hands, 5 minutes for Divine Shield, and then a few minutes for your Spell Bops. And the others are relatively small. Now, Forbearance is 30 seconds lockout. And what Forbearance is, for those that don't know, if you use a Blessing of Protection or a Divine Shield or a Lay on Hands, you are given a debuff called Forbearance for 30 seconds. This prevents you from using your Divine Shield or Spell Bop/Physical Bop for that duration. Now, this is a long window in PvP sense because there are potentially diminishing returns that come off cooldown in this time. So if you're a Rogue Mage Priest, your next go you can definitely kill a Paladin because he has no way of getting out. He has Forbearance, so he can't bubble, he can't Lay on Hands, he can't bop himself. As for Blessing of Sacrifice is a good way to help your team out. A lot of DPS have these ways of helping their team out. This is one of them for Rets. Rets also have Blessing of Sanctity, which can get them out of fears, stuns, and stuff like that of nature. And this is just utility that every class has, essentially. Warlocks have the same. Warlocks have Spam Fear. Demo Warlocks have a stun. You have Coil. You have curses for Warlocks, which make people unable to crit, like physically crit, like unable crit immune. Crit immune, essentially. It makes the casters and their teammates to be crit immune from that target. For priests, you have Leap of Faith, you have Shield, you have Void Shift, you have Fears, you have Roots. There's many different things that you can have to help your team. Warriors have them. Intervene, Rallying Cry, War Banner. It isn't new for a class to have these sort of things in the game, so I don't think Paladins are that big of a deal right now. In my honest opinion. Buff Holy Pallor, Healing, and Mana for the Maestro. Not sure who the Maestro is, and no idea. I like how there's no mention of Outlaw Rogues, and I like how this guy says buff Pallor, Healing, and Mana. I've been in massively damp games with Holy Paladins because you can run Divine Plea, and Divine Plea does give you 2 mana bars essentially. It gives you 500k plus worth of mana, and it's absolutely crazy. In the right hands, Holy Paladin is very, very good. I think it could do with a little bit of a buff potentially, and maybe more like, I want to say casted, but oh no, it could do with maybe a bit more of a buff to bring it in line with other healers, but I think it's just based on the meta if Holy Paladin is good or not. I think it's in a decent spot right now with rogues somewhat being there, but it's overshadowed just by like a demon hunter that can train them down, and like the melee cleaves that can honestly just train down a Holy Paladin and stuff like that. So it's very tough to say, but I'm not too sure about this list. I'd say the Demon Hunter nerf is obviously like a given. I think everyone is a given for that. But I think the other ideas just aren't needed, to be honest with you, in any sort of way. But let's move on to the next topic. So this one I found really intriguing. So World of Warcraft play order. I really want to play World of Warcraft story from the beginning, but I'm unsure what the beginning even is. Is there a specific race you have to start with, or race doesn't matter to any specific quest? Also, do expansions continue from the last mission in the story mode, main story mode? I wasn't able to find any YouTube videos explaining the story mode, and that's why I'm asking. I want to play everything this game has to offer, but also learn every lore within it. Now, this is quite cool because obviously people who pick up the game don't actually know the lore, how to progress the story, where to start, stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure when you first pick up the game, it will put you in a little story mode, the little island thing. Now, this is just kind of a tutorial area. When you hit level 10, you will be transported to Stormwind, which is the capital city of the Alliance, or Orgrimmar, the capital city of Horde. Now, if you want to do this in chronological and expansion order, you would go from technically Burning Crusade now, but you can also start with Cataclysm. Cataclysm is the old world, and it is just revamped. So, you know what? Let's do that. Cataclysm technically, and then you would go on to Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Missa Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, Battle for Azeroth, Shadowlands, and then Dragonflight. This would be your expansion chronological order, in which we experienced it, the player base, growing up throughout the years. Now, as for lore-wise and going from zone to zone, story-wise, each expansion has its own story. It doesn't continue on from the previous expansion, if that makes sense. So you won't go from Burning Crusade to Wrath of the Lich King and be like, oh my god, I heard troubling news of Arthas reawakening in Northrend. Can you go and deal with him from Shattrath City? You'll get a breadcrumb quest, and what these breadcrumb quests are is essentially, I'll go to Stormwind Harbour to, talk about the plight or the blight that is happening in Northrend, that kind of deal. So it leads you on to that expansion. But what you want to do as as you're questing through the expansion is primarily there are ways to go about questing and storylines within the expansion zones. So for Burning Crusade, you start off going through the Dark Portal and you start in Hellfire Peninsula. And you realise, oh, okay, this is why, they're fighting. And then it takes you to Zangarmarsh to see what's happening in Zangarmarsh. And they each have their own sort of story. In sort of Terracar Forest and then Shadow Moon, all of that stuff. They all have their own stories. Some lead into them. Some lead into the next zone. But in the earlier expansions, they don't really. Later on, in Warlords of Draenor and stuff, they start to. But yeah, in terms of they have their own individual stories, the zones in earlier expansions. So don't worry about missing anything like that. As for the the most lore-rich expansion, it's going to be tough to say because so many of them have so much lore behind them that you would have to watch lore videos on them. The best one that I could probably recommend is like Noble87, I think, is YouTube. Does great lore videos, but there's loads out there who do them. But I would say Wrath of the Lich King is probably your best bet to start off with if you want to learn lore, because that would be what a lot of things led up to before World of Warcraft came out. So before World of Warcraft came out, there was Warcraft 1, 2, 3, all of that stuff. And this had stuff to do with Illidan and Arthas, and really set the scenes for the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. This is where a lot of the initial lore comes from. These, they're not MOBAs, they're RPG games. I think it's an RPG game. But yeah, this is where a lot of the lore comes from with regards to that. And essentially, you're looking at Wrath of the Lich King. Let's go over this via very lore-specific, moments and characters. So I would say it's Wrath of the Lich King. I would say, can you include Classic in there? I would say it's Classic first, technically. But then Wrath of the Lich King. I would say it's probably... What would you guys think? I would say maybe Legion is good, but it's got a lot of niche lore elements to it. Maybe Burning Crusade. Yeah, maybe Burning Crusade. Then technically you can put Cataclysm / Classic here because it had a lot of stuff to do with Deathwing. I would say Battle for Azeroth is up there with lore-wise because you have the Zandalari, who are notorious in World of Warcraft lore, as well as contentious and stuff like that. They are very much within the Warcraft universe, and lore-wise, they are very rich in it, is the best way to put it. I would say Legion has quite a bit of lore with Gul'dan, Sargeras, Argus, with Velen's homeworld, Kil'jaeden, Archimonde, World Souls, Titans, a lot of that shit happens in Legion. That's probably higher on the list, to be honest. Probably Warlords of Draenor next, because that shows the old Outland. Like, Outland is just Draenor, but essentially the lore behind it is that the world was just split and ripped open by Gul'dan because he wanted to create portals to certain places. So Draenor became Outland because of that. And that's why it's kind of like a... if you look in the Outland skybox, you see loads of different planets, different skyboxes. It's a shit show if you look at the skybox, essentially, in Outland. Then I would say probably Dragonflight / Mists of Pandaria. And then Shadowlands is last. It has some bits and pieces of lore. Obviously, you're going to find a lot of people from the lore in Shadowlands because they're all dead now. But yeah, I would say in terms of what it offered, mostly, I would say that's the order of it. But again, I wouldn't be too worried about sort of going through a main playthrough and a story sense. I would say pick an expansion and deal with that expansion story. You don't want to view it as a whole thing because you will be overwhelmed. You want to do... So, how many is there? There's Classic, Burning Crusade, Wrath, Mists of Pandaria. You have Worlds of Draenor, Legion, BFA, Shadowlands, Dragonflight. You have 9 different expansions, if you count Cataclysm as an expansion and not Classic. Essentially, you can make 9 characters and do one of these leveling zones each. That way you get to experience the entirety of the questing lore, but behind a lot of the things, there is so much more behind it. There's so much more behind Arthas that you don't get to see from the questing perspective. So in Wrath of the Lich King, you free Magni Bronzebeard. This is going to be story spoilers, by the way, if people don't want to know this. But essentially, you free Magni and in the Storm Peaks, and he was the one who trained Arthas when he was a young lad. And if you kill Arthas by doing the Shadowmourne quest, you get like some items off of Arthas, and you get a training sword, and you turn it into Magni, and you get a little bit of dialogue and stuff. But if you go before that, the reason that Magni was in Northrend was looking for Frostmourne, and Frostmourne is the blade that Arthas wields when he becomes the Lich King, and Magni was knocked out by Arthas essentially acquiring the blade and lost his memory and stuff. Hence why you didn't know that he was in Northrend and all of that stuff. There's so much behind it, and then you go back even further. Arthas was the kind of student of Uther the Lightbringer, one of the first paladins, essentially. And there's so much behind it. You just have to really delve into it. But a lot of the lore does come from books and stuff, like books, comics, and stuff like that. Even weapons within the game have their own lore. Look at if you want something to look at in terms of lore base, look at the weapon called Ashbringer. That's got a lot of lore to do with it. Atiesh is another one. You have Frostmourne, which is another one, like I've already said. There's so many weapons alone that have so much lore behind them that it's impossible to put into every single story and expansion. You have to actively go and find stuff on YouTube or Google or anything like that. It's a lot. It is a lot to take in, but hopefully this is helpful for people looking to get into WoW. I know it's very tough and a bit awkward to do so when you do kind of feel a little bit overwhelmed, I would say, when it does come to this sort of thing, but it is what it is. It's a game that is constantly growing, and all you can do is try and catch up, but eventually you will catch up. You just got to take it at your own pace, and if you start joining the game, that means that there's a lot of years to enjoy it, because it's you don't have to blitz through everything. You can just take it at your own pace and, not go too crazy with it. But that is where I'll end this episode. Thank you all very much for listening. As always, do check out the socials down below. Let me know what you think of the episode. Please rate it, share it. It really does help out. And, I wouldn't be able to thank you enough for it. But thank you all very much once again. And go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.